We are.
Got it.
All right. Hi, I am Jeanette Moreno King, and I'm the president of the Animation Guild, and I'm going to be moderating our panel tonight. I'm also a supervising director on an FX show called Little Demon. That's a horror comedy. We're just getting started, so there isn't a whole lot that I could tell you about it, but we're excited to get going. And the panel is a lot of, we have two supervising directors on the panel and a director and show creator. So I'm gonna go around and let them introduce themselves. But first, I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Animation Guild. And the Animation Guild is a union. We're a local of IATSE, which is, oh my God, the International Alliance of Technical and Entertain. Oh my God. Oh. Theatrical and stage employees. That's it. I can never get it. I've been involved with the union for so long and I can never get it right. It's terrible. Anyway, we represent entertainment workers, and we help them with bargaining with the studios to make sure that we all get a fair wage and that we get the benefits that we need, and it makes it easier for us to jump from gig to gig. And it kind of gives stability to this crazy industry that we're in, because you never know when you're going to be working, right? Anyway, so the Animation Guild is a labor union that represents more than 5,500 animation artists and technicians and writers. And so we negotiate wage minimums and working conditions and benefits. And we provide resources for inclusive community for guild members and future animation industry professionals. So one of our missions is to kind of let people know that we're even here, and to know that, you know, there's a union out there to protect them. We're going to go around with introductions, and Cecilia, it would be great if you started us, and then Anthony Lioi, and then Latoya Raveneau next, and just introduce yourself and what you do and all of that.
Okay. Hi, my name is Cecilia Aranovich. I'm currently the supervising director and producer of the show Harley Quinn on HBO Max, produced at Warner Brothers. And I am originally from Spain. I moved here around early 2000s to pursue a career in animation. And since then, I worked in many different type of shows, from children cartoons to primetime to action to now like adult dark comedies. I worked on a show called Pink Panther and Pals, which was geared towards children. It was a version of the original Pink Panther. Then I moved to Bento Box to work on the show Bob's Burgers. I storyboarded and directed on that show. And about 6 or 7 years ago, I moved to Warner Brothers. I started on the show DC Superhero Girls. I first boarded and then moved to directing. And then, oh my God, that dog is so cute. I'm sorry.
Thanks, Jeanette.
You had to say it. I'm so glad you said it, though.
Sorry, I'm gonna help myself. And then after DC Girls, I did a lot of Scooby-Doo DTVs, directed and produced, and now finally here at Harley Quinn, which is this adult, gritty, dark comedy, which I really, really love.
Sorry, I gotta hand this dog off because he's gonna be making noise all. Can you take him, please?
He wants to know if this is cayenne pepper.
Okay. Sorry, family. It's a work from home stuff.
Yeah,
that, oh my
it's
God,
the work from home magic that we've all gotten so accustomed to.
Doesn't matter what's going on in Zoom land. But yeah, Harley Quinn is a crazy show, which must be very fun to work on. Anthony Lioi.
Hey.
Hey.
Hi. So what? You want to know where I come from?
Yes.
That's the thing. All right. Shit.
Start with what you're doing now, and then kind of.
Right.
You know,
so for the past 5-6 years, I've been supervising and producing Big Mouth, and we're I guess it's been announced. We have our spin-off show, Human Resources, will drop on Netflix early next year. So that's been fun.
Are you doing both at the same time?
Yep.
Yes, doing 2 projects at once, Anthony. Not at all a bad idea.
Well, it's like I was supervising the Fox shows for a long time. I did American Dad.
That's how I met you.
And then I met Jeanette on Cleveland show. So like, those orders, we always got like 20 to 24 episode orders. So with these simple Netflix shows, we only get 10 episode orders. So handling 20 was easy for me to do because I had 15 years experience juggling pre and post and everything in between for 20 episodes at once. So I'm still doing it. It's just, before that, I mean, I was lucky enough to do first season of Avatar. I guess I'm going backwards now from where we met on the Cleveland show, and then before that, American Dad. But I did a short stint on Avatar because I got the call because I had just left King of the Hill. I was on King of the Hill for a bunch of years, 8 or 9 seasons of that. So that's going back to 1997.
Well, that group of people that worked on King of the Hill, like they've kind of stayed together. It's like this loose, like spread out, but also kind of stayed together. So
yeah, a lot of them are still a family. Family Guy. Are you thinking of like do you still see them over at Rough Draft or? Yeah,
for sure.
And the book too.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I mean, you learn a lot on those shows, and then it can kind of spread out to, every show is totally different, but you do take a bit of knowledge that you learn, in the way that the workflow goes.
I learned that like King of the Hill days, we all took it for granted. The amount of time we had, like we did one episode at a time. And we would take that, we would do no overlap. We would do boards, and then you would make the animatic. You'd lock your animatic, and then you'd go through X sheets. Like so, that's how I learned how to do sheets. Because like I would literally just be able to focus on sheets, and I loved it. And I loved being able to understand how to communicate with Korean teams because it's a different. Well, I mean, clearly it's a different language because they don't speak English, but it just means like a different way to communicate to people who don't understand the language you're describing that you're speaking. So like, and how to work within the machine. But yeah, the luxury of time. Now, we're all doing like 4 episodes at once, in every phase,
Yeah, there's a lot of overlap. It's a lot of juggling. So it's kind of meeting after meeting after meeting. There's less and less drawing, when you now. Okay, so Latoya.
Yeah, hi, I'm Latoya Raveneau. I am currently a director on the new Proud Family, Louder and Prouder, and also an executive producer on the series of shorts called Rise Up, Sing Out that at Disney Junior with the Roots. And so, like Anthony, doing two shows at once. And actually, it's been very gratifying. And I think it was also a bit of I was used to like really tight schedules, and so while Proud started to wind down, it felt appropriate to jump onto a new project. My background comes from both writing and storyboarding, kind of ping-ponged between preschool shows like Puppy Dog Pals and like adult action comedies like Final Space for a while, but also did some writing on Netflix's Super Monsters, which is this preschool show they had, and some development writing for Glenn Keane's production company. So sort of like directing by day, writing by night has been the way that I've been moving through this industry so far. And yeah, I feel like I've moved into this more directorial, producerial position more recently, and so it's been a very cool and interesting learning curve. The difference between directing on between boarding, first of all, but then between boarding and directing, and then between like directing a team of 3 artists versus directing a show of people. So that has been a very cool, exciting.
It's like a big jump managing like a whole team, understanding the context of your big company you're kind of part of, and how to navigate that, like what you can, like but how you can get your show the way that you want, but with through the way that they do their shows.
Yeah,
so.
and it's exactly what you guys are saying, right? It's like every single studio. I feel like I've moved through a lot of this, Wild Canary and Shadow Machine and Titmouse, and then like Disney has a completely different, like every company every studio has like its own identity, and then every show within each studio has like its own micro identity. So it kind of feels like learning how to apply what works for you within the new confines or the new context of wherever you end up next. Has been really, like, I don't know if you guys have felt this, or it's like every time you move to a new show, it's like, okay, what is my version of doing this job here?
It takes me about 2 months to feel like I'm okay, like when I start on something new. Like I really enjoy doing the world building part of these shows, being on a first season show is pretty, I don't know, some people think it's crazy, but I really love it. It's like,
oh yeah, no, I live for the chaos. I feel like I've almost exclusively ended up starting shows that are like the first season of it. Like I've never jumped onto a show that's like several seasons in, so I'm like, I don't have any idea what that must be like.
It can be hard because you have to learn the language that's been developed before you got there, right? But it's kind of fun to make that language, right? Like like some joke or some walk or some little thing that you toss off can become canon of the show, and it's kind of thrilling. I won't jump out of a plane, but I will work on a first season show. All right, so I'm going to dive into the questions that we have. So I guess we talked a little bit about your career journey. So I think the question is, because I'm not good at I'm just going to read the question because, but then we're going to just go up there. Walk us through your process during the production and how do you start? And I think we all kind of start the same way, right? With the script. I think we all work on scripted shows, right?
Oh yeah, that's a fact.
Yeah. You feel free to jump in.
But then what happens after that?
It's the mystery.
Well, it's interesting. You were talking about like different pipelines, different styles of studios. Like we're doing Big Mouth over at Titmouse, but like our pipeline is extremely unique to what we do. Speaking to like, Jeanette, when we started on the Cleveland show, that's where I met Jeanette. That was when Fox first transitioned to digital boards. Just before that, we were still working on paper. So we were the first show of the trilogy over there, for the Fox shows, to go digital. So like we had to immediately break the mold and figure out a new way to go. So Gone, in my mind, was the 3-act structure. Like you do act 1, you do act 2, and you will do act 3. Like that was, to me, was antiquated. So because you can't have giant storyboard profiles that way. So like immediately we started dividing the script up into smaller bits. Now that pipeline that we introduced in those early days of the Cleveland show, I took with me to multiple productions after that. And now what we are working with now is very different. It's like,
really?
It starts off like that. I have a really unique division of labor in order to get these scripts done, because these scripts are huge. 50-page scripts.
I heard today that you have 50 to 60 page scripts.
Yes.
For a 22-minute episode? Oh my goodness.
We deliver, we ship 25 minutes.
That's still massive.
Yes.
So for context, I don't know for context, the translation of script to page should be approx a minute per page. So if you have 50 pages, that's 50 ostensibly minutes worth of content that has to somehow magically become 25 minutes.
Yeah, we take a lot of air out between words. It's just
it's like it's almost like a 40s comedy. with how fast the dialogue is shot out.
I think once Family Guy hit the scene, like everything became faster. I mean, even when I was directing King of the Hill at the time, King of the Hill was slow. I mean, if you look at the main title of that, Wes Archer, the way he timed Hank Hill throwing out the trash, 16 frame steps. The guy, one step is 16 frames. That's slow.
Yeah.
Animation nerds, that's slow. So,
well, and it's Wes, I mean.
Yeah, and also it's
Wes, you understand.
It's also a Texas show. Wes is from Texas.
Yeah.
You do speak a little slower
sure.
in Texas. So,
but what I'm getting at is like even with when Family Guy hit the scene, like even those shows, I started timing mine faster and faster. You like not quite subconsciously, I was purposefully like speeding things up, and I've definitely noticed that trend. And now with Big Mouth, man, we just like machine gun fire the jokes. And
the comedy is snappy.
Snappy.
I love Big Mouth's writing, and just like the timing is so nice.
So Ceci, like, am I saying that right? Ceci or Cece?
Yes, Ceci.
Ceci, yeah. I just want to make sure. Yeah. So like, how do you do it on Harley Quinn? Do you guys start with a full script, or can you go off the script, or?
Not really. I mean, we have a special situation with Harley Quinn because the show is very much driven by the writers. And, you know, usually in other shows that I worked at Warner Brothers, you know, we just got the script and we never again interacted with the writers. You know, it was like that with DC Girls. It was like that with the Scooby, you know, just get the script and then you change some things, you know, but with Harley Quinn, the writers are very much involved in the whole process. And really the comedy of the show is in the writing. You know, we have these really, really good writers. So the script is kind of like our Bible. And I think the writers for our show, they really feel that the comedy is embedded in the timing and the pacing of the dialogue. So they want to be involved in that. So when the board team starts, they always start from a radio play that is already timed out. So all the artist performances have already been recorded, and the writers have worked with the editor, you know, like timing and pacing the radio play to the point where they like it and where they think that the comedy works well. And then that's what the board artists, the teams, you know, work with. So there's not much deviation from that. You know, we always tell the board artists and the directors, do not open the track, you know, unless it's absolutely necessary. Unless you need it for action, you know, that is not like worked already in the radio play. Please don't open the track, because the writers, the showrunners really feel that that's where the timing, where the comedy is.
We have the exact same thing on our show. Our writers are new to animation, but they're really collaborative, so that's been really fun. But they do have specific timing on the comedy bits. My show is it kind of similar to yours in that it's like there's a bit of action and there's horror, so there's atmospheric stuff that has to come into play, and it's in those moments that we can open it up. But we'll see if it stays, because it's a brand new show. It could be edited out later, you know. So who knows? It sounds like a similar process for us too.
Yeah, I do like the way, you know, we work with the writing team, you know, because it's also kind of like an organic feel. You know, if something is not working in the board stage, you know, you can go back, you know, to the writing team and try to work it out. You know, like as you know, before you try to, you know, you're kind of like in the dark, you know, you try to come up with like new ideas and gags. But it's mostly like physical comedy, but having the writing team there, you know, to help you with like new lines and work out story problems. It's I like the way, you know, this collaborative relationship works in this show, and I didn't have that in the other show. So I think it's I think it's
a fun way.
Ones, yeah.
Yeah, I think it's I like it when we can interact with the writers, because it makes it feel more like a team.
Yeah,
like we're all working towards the same.
Oh yeah, we've definitely been on productions where there's an us and them situation, unfortunately. But it's like, yeah, if you work in a collaborative environment, stay there.
Yeah. It's rewarding. So how's your experience, Latoya?
Yeah, to be honest, Proud Family, which is the first 6 to 11 show I've worked on, it's very much like right down the middle as far as like wait on the script, wait on the boards. Like the scripts we get are very, you know, solid, but after we get them, there is a lot of wiggle room as far as like execution, or even if certain interplays or settings, like, so a lot more flux is kind of given to the episodic directors. So for example, if we get a script and a scenario takes place in a setting that feels like it might be either stronger for narrative reasons or more cost effective for design reasons to take place somewhere else, I'll float that by the showrunner, and like 9 out of 10, they'll be fine with it. Like, so that level of freedom, but also collaboration. I've also never quite worked in a situation like this where, like, if I have a question about the script, I can just poke the writer and we can talk about their intention versus like kind of what I'm seeing, and we'll find what makes sense. As far as because when I was on the primetime, we also had like the radio plays to work with, but it has been, and it's also the Rona time, so I think that's, but like there have definitely been instances where we're working off the script and absolutely no audio. Like, so that this is the first time I've ever boarded in a situation, and I think it is very much as a result of the pandemic that things became a little bit that way, but it was also very cool because then there'd be instances where the audio hasn't been recorded yet. The board artist would come up with something hilarious, and then we'd like show it to the showrunner and be like, okay, so a little bit of a riff, can we get an alt take like this? And they'd be like, oh my God, love it. Let's grab that alt take for this character. And so it had this kind of weird, like forward and backward storytelling momentum that just kept, I feel like because Bruce and Ralph, the show creators of Proud Family, have such a firm understanding of who these characters are, that like all the board artists got it, all the directors like get who they are. And so it was never like an us versus them dynamic that I have definitely also felt on some other productions, where it was just kind of like, we all kind of know what the show wants to be. And like, it just became a like, oh, I have an idea. What do you think? And so that was really cool. But yeah, it is definitively script driven. Most of the writers, I believe, come from like sitcom, and some of them come from live action. So it's got a solid like script backbone.
You know, I wonder how much of that more collaborative way of working with the writers has to do with the way the industry is changing. You know, like the orders are smaller, and our production times are faster. And, you know, I wonder how much, you know, if that made collaborating more necessary, you know? There's less time to fix it later, you know?
Yeah.
or just less assholes getting shows.
Better people making content.
We have a no assholes policy on our crew. Like,
on the door as you enter the building.
Yes.
So if you're an asshole, don't apply to our show.
Yeah, the show's hard already, right?
Yeah.
It's hard. These jobs are tough already. Like, we don't need assholes to make it harder, you know? All right, I'm going to move on to the next question. Oh, okay. This one sounds kind of tough. What is essential to a successful production, right?
I will throw this out here. Communication.
Hey, that's what I was
The one word. That's the one that's my over the door thing. Because I'm like, I want to know what everybody is feeling about all the things at all times. If you're feeling bad about the deadline, I need to know that information. If this thing is slipping, like I feel like all of the times I've been on shows where it's been rocky, it's been because some piece of information was not moved to some other place.
Yep. Yeah, I also think, because, you know, I've been on shows where they've had like a chat, you know, when we're in studio, and I never felt compelled to use the chat, right? Because the office is right there, I could walk over. Mm-hmm. But work from home, we kind of always have to use this chat stuff. And I think people communicate a little bit, like any idea, any thought just goes right up, right? Mm-hmm.
Sharing images immediately and reference, of course. I mean, definitely during the COVID time, I made a point of telling our directors, like, you have to be over communicative, because too many people just shy away and they just stay in their little caves and work with what's right in front of them. But yeah, during these past year and a half, you got to be extra open.
Yeah, like if you feel like you're bugging them, you're probably speaking just enough.
Yeah.
Right? How about you, Ceci?
I totally agree. With the communication between departments, it's so important. Like for me, it's between the writing team and the storyboarding team, and also between storyboarding and the design team, because they're usually parallel to each other. Boards are being done and things are being designed, and if there's no communication between the two, then there's like things divert. So they have to meet at some point, and designs are constantly being updated from the boards. So there needs to be a communication there. At an individual level, I feel it's important that everybody in production is aware, has a clear understanding of what their role within the production is. Like sometimes when you start a new show, like things are a little bit blurry, especially because nowadays, like storyboard artists have taken more responsibilities, than before. So I think, animation is completely a team effort. So I think as long as everybody has a clear understanding of what the responsibilities are, and they sort of perform their tasks to the best of their abilities, then you have a smoothly run production.
Mm-hmm.
And for the supervisors, like the supervising producer and the supervising director, and even the episodic directors, I think attention to detail is like super crucial. Like the tighter you get a board before you ship it, like the less headaches you're gonna have later on in post. Because I know a lot of people that say, "Oh, it doesn't matter, like don't worry about hookups, don't worry about this. We'll fix it in post." And that never works. There's no time, there's no money in post. So I find that it's really important, to catch those things, when you finalize the boards during pre-production. Like the hookups are super important. And make sure that the character proportions are right, make sure that everything is clear and everything that everything flows. Like it's just about catching those little details that maybe when you're watching a black and white animatic, it doesn't really jump at you that much. It's not, you don't really see it, but then when it comes back in color, you're like, wow, what is that? So I think that for me has been really like, I really try to have all the boards, the episodes as tight as possible before they ship, because I feel that it saves so much, at the end. It saves in costs and man hours, and it's just, saves a lot of
I think it kind of depends on where you're sending it. Like what studio is following you up, and if it's being drawn or if it's like a harmony show, I think there's a little bit, because that cleanup phase of the boards like kills me. Like I don't enjoy it. And if we can keep it legible but a little rough,
Well, I think for me it's not so much like perfect cleanup as much as the continuity and the character hookup, and the character proportions, and like I like to have those things like really tight, but not so much the cleanup of the characters. Like in Harley Quinn, we have kind of complex characters. They have a lot of details in their clothing, and their outfits. We have Bane that has like 1,000 details. So I would never ask the board artist to put every single detail, in the final, for all of these characters, because that is just torture. But so that part is not as important to me as, having like an animatic that works, continuity wise, and there's no like hookup problems or perspective problems, or, the size comparison between the characters in one scene is wrong. All those things are really hard to fix, at the end, and it kind of snowballs. And but I love it when somebody says, we'll fix it in post. I'm like, no, we'll fix it now.
I had
Show me where,
I had an editor that had a poster behind him that it said, it had a skeleton at an edit bay, and it said, fix it in pre.
Yeah, that's a good motto.
So, Latoya, I guess the community, I'm going to move on to the next.
There is another thing. I wonder if how you guys feel about, like, for me in like the leadership capacity, like organization, like just knowing what I need to tackle, like the priority as far as like what needs to go where next, because you have so many things that are moving simultaneously that, like, for me, that like is a personal like must for the production for to work smoothly, and like the micro of like my one team or the one like story aspect of it is having a handle on what needs to be, because it's like if you lose track or of like, oh, this episode ships in 2 weeks, therefore we really need to start on the black and white design. Like if you're not aware of what should be going on, things can slip through the cracks really easily.
And
so
that's where
become...
that's where good production people come in.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it's like how you set up your pipeline. I think like I've been on shows where it's like you launch a board on a Monday and you're like, see you in 6 weeks, and then they just give you a board. You're like, I haven't been working like that in a long time. You know, we have check-ins, we have milestones built in to all the stuff. So, you know, to what Latoya is saying, like where you know where your show is at, build your pipeline with milestones. So there are check-ins, there are things you have to hit, and everyone knows what's coming. Everyone's approaching that date, you know. So
I just set up that tracker today where it's like, all right, 2 weeks in, I'm expecting to see this much of the show, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, you got a few more days and then I want this much more. So yeah, I just set that up. So
how many board artists do you have on a show per team?
We have 3 board artists per team, and then we have floaters. So, you know, so they're kind of like a strike team that can come in.
Like a strike team.
Yeah, when it's going to be a big show, you know, there's a lot of crap. It's kind of like your show. Like there's, you know, like any sci-fi show or fantasy show, there's like a ton of new backgrounds all the time. There's like, you know, like sometimes the whole town is there, you know? So, yeah.
Oh yeah, I just had a meeting with the EPs on for HR2, and we were just like, all right, we don't need another episode where you have every character on screen at once.
Well, and you know,
Please.
like when you're first building, when it's a first season show, you still don't have a library to draw from. So it's not like the designers can do everything at once, you know? You have to space that out too. So, and then as you get further on, you have, you know, more characters to do, but then how many, you know, your overseas studio, like, are they going to build rigs for every character? Like, if you have a crowd, are they really, so we have to do workarounds for crowd scenes, because they can't, it's not like when we were in Pencil, when we had a crowd, we would actually draw the crowd, right?
Not just copy paste, you mean?
No, not just
how we do now.
Yeah. Well, we're even gonna go. We might even keep it more vague with the crowd in the back. You know, like have it so it'll be a little bit more graphic than
silhouettes and stuff.
Yeah, stylization. I feel like has really become. That's the other thing where it's just like watching which things are like what is the priority of, I guess, if you're showrunner the show, for if you're like doing story gen, like the episodes, like is it the animation, this emotional scene, and then like what can you let fall to the side? It has become like, I feel like there's a lot of like weighing, like, but what do I really need for this to have or to
priorities are awesome like that. Like I hate getting notes where like the light switch in the back of the room is up where it should be down because the lights are off, you know, or whatever.
Yeah, and you're like, I'm really hoping no one will be looking at that light switch during this emotional scene.
If your audience is noticing the light switch, you have a bigger problem.
Exactly. I'm like, something has gone horribly awry. That is where.
Yeah. Like, I have gotten the light switch, which is why I.
Yes. Well, yeah. I mean, there is the thing where like the people that are creating the show, they are looking at these episodes over and over and over, right? And so they would know.
As are we. Why are we should be looking at them over and over again too.
I guess so. I guess that's true. Okay, I'm gonna move on to the next question. Okay, each of your shows focuses on a different genre, from action to adult comedy to children's programming. How does the genre play into your creative process and decisions? So Latoya, why don't you start, since you're like, you know, yours is more, you know,
Yeah,
a specific demo.
Yeah, I feel like Proud Family honestly is a pretty, I mean, it's comedy for sure. I think if I was gonna be like, what is the majority of the genre? It's comedy, but it has like action-y moments and it'll have like heartfelt drama moments. But I think for me, the genre of the show affects the type of, well, obviously the artists that are best suited for it, but it also kind of affects the way like I think of the cinematography, because like I don't want to overcomplicate a shot for a comedy moment that would be hilarious in a wide shot, but like could be cooler at this crazy Dutch angle if we put the camera through a cup. Like we could, but like why? So that's kind of how I think. Like I feel like every genre that I've worked on has like its own needs, and it just becomes like figuring out what would be the most efficient and effective way to serve whatever the need of even the like genre of the scene, because like yeah, it changes scene by scene on Proud Family.
Right.
I'm
curious about
you're
action
making a
shows.
reference.
Yeah.
Sometimes there's a reference to some other type of genre within the show.
Oh yeah, there'll be so many like, honestly that's my favorite Catholic comedy, is the one where you're like soft parodying something else or like playing against type. So that is, yeah. I'm curious though, because you guys have worked on like action shows, and I've never worked on like pure action before. That seems like its own.
That's a good segue to Ceci, you know, because I think your show has probably the most action out of all of ours.
Yes, yes, a lot of action, but I totally agree with you. You know, you kind of tailor the visual storytelling, you know, to the tone of your show and your audience. You know, I work in both preschool and action shows, and you know, for the preschool shows, you know, you would kind of choose clarity above all, you know, so you would stage everything very clear, very simple. The pacing is slow so the young viewers can follow. With action, it's kind of like, it's you also want clarity and continuity, but you know, you want to keep the audience sort of engaged, you know, and you want your shots to be exciting, you know, so the pacing is very quick. You know, you have like quick cuts, you know, your angles are interesting. You have, you know, extreme down shots and extreme up shots and Dutch angles, you know, and all of this is sort of to keep the audience engaged, you know, and like sort of like guide them through this action sequence. So it's I think, you know, the staging, you know, the shots you choose and the timing and the pacing, you know, it's what makes the difference, you know, between the two types of shows.
Man, action border artists are so incredibly productive. The amount of drawings that they have to put out is insane.
Yeah, the pencil mileage boggles my mind. I have a lot of friends who are in that like the Copelands or rad, and like the school of action boarding, and I'm just like, my brain, like how?
The hard part is like making sure that stuff doesn't get cut, right?
Yeah, our shows are so tight, you know, because we work with the radio play, so we have an sort of like an idea how long the show is going to be. Our scripts are between, you know, 28 to 31, 32 pages.
Yeah, same for us.
You know, the radio plays kind of come out to about, I think we ship 22, 30, you know, so they come out pretty much between the range between 22, 23, you know, so, and, you know, they try to sort of embed some time in the radio play for action bits, and it doesn't always match, you know, sometimes you need more time, sometimes you need less time, you know, but I think the adjustment works, you know, with the embedded timing that we get in the radio play, because after all, I think we're first a comedy show and then we're an action show. So, you know, we always try to land the comedy first, you know, the comedy is first and the action is second. So, you know, we sometimes sacrifice some of the action, you know, just to land a gag, you know, just for the sake of the humor. So,
that's how it was.
It's a lot of drawing, you know, sometimes I look at some of these boards and there's like hundreds of panels at 1 and 2 frames, and I'm like, oh my God, so much drawing.
They're amazing artists, though. The people that can.
They're very hardworking and very, very amazing artists. Yes.
Yeah. How about you, Anthony?
What's the question?
How the genre of your show affects, like, you know, the creative process and decisions that are made on your show?
Well, I mean, it's an adult show, the style is like a single camera comedy show. So unlike other shows where it's like everything's flat and proscenium. You know, our style of show is like bringing the camera into the shot. You know, the camera is important and could make or break a joke. You know, that you could. Yeah, I don't know.
That's kind of how like this show that we're just starting on. We're trying to step away from the traditional Fox proscenium kind of staging. Like there needs to be more depth in the show, and it actually needs to feel like a town that they're in, because we have these horror bits and we want them to be scary. So if the show feels flat, the viewer isn't in there with them. Definitely. And there's already it's already kind of hard to do horror in animation, because, you know, the way horror works is that the viewer sees themselves in there. In animation, there is kind of a separation because it's drawn, right? So good animation and good directing should be able to pull them in to that stuff. So it's we're just getting started though, so hopefully we can do it, you know.
I like that though, because it's like the tone of whatever the genre is changes where like optimal location of audience would be. Whereas like for comedy, sometimes like the best vantage point for a joke is outside of it, like watching it occur. Sometimes it's like you are the person in the scene, and so it's almost like you have to figure out what is the placement of you as the viewer that would best serve the feeling you're trying to achieve. Like, but for example, I love like rack focuses and things that manipulate the understanding of space, because that like always feels like, and maybe it's because we've all been grown like watching films, but like it makes it feel dramatic to see someone's focus go from like a thing they're holding to the person behind it, and like you understand, like it makes you feel it, because like that's how our eyes work. So like I feel like the way you're thinking about like horror for an animated thing, where it's like, oh yeah, it would be kind of hard to do horror from like that far away camera. Like
yeah. Well, like horror and comedy are going to be related, because like, do you want the audience to be ahead of the gag, or do you want them hit with the gag? You know.
That's choices. Exactly right. Yeah, it's like you know, sometimes it works with like a jump scare, you know, like this is my second horror thing that I've supervised on. And nice. we had pretty good jump scares on the other one, so I'd say they were pretty successful.
I'm so excited. I'm like, more horror comedies in animation. Bring more.
It seems like there's more, you know, it seems like more is in the, you know, there's several that have been greenlit, so curious to see where it goes. I think that this generation that grew up with anime, you know, and that kind of stuff has made them more open to different varieties of storytelling, and I'm excited about that too. Even like the emotional, like my favorite thing to do is two people arguing. That's like my favorite thing to do. I don't know why. I'm really a happy person, but I do like it.
She said with a smile on her
face. It's fun. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead. Let's see, we are near the end, so I have like one more question and then we can sign off. So what are some of the challenges you regularly face in production, and how do you turn them into creative opportunities? I think we all have experienced challenges on the shows that we've been on, right?
Yes.
Oh. Want to jump in, Ceci?
Well, I think this is in every TV production. You know, you always have the constraints of budget and schedule. That I think that's that is the reality of TV production. You know, we don't have this big, beautiful budgets like feature animation does. You know, and you know, of course you want your show to be big, you know, and you want this big action scenes and you want all these characters, but you know, the reality of it is that sometimes you have to compromise, you know, and make the show producible, you know, so, you know, you have to like question yourself, it's like, oh, are these, you know, how many more assets I'm creating now? Or is this too complicated for the studio overseas to animate? So, you know, sometimes you sort of have to compromise and take a step back and economize. But I do find that sometimes, because of the need to economize, you get like, happy accidents. You like come up with like workarounds that sometimes lead to like funnier outcomes. Like, for example, you had, and this kind of relates to what you're saying before, Latoya, about the point of view, like whether you're inside or whether you're like watching it from the outside. Like you have, Harley Quinn, and she needs to like fight and beat a bunch of goons, in a van. It's like, yeah, your first instinct is to like have the camera inside and have this huge action sequence and all these assets and all these characters. But, that is super costly, and, it costs like a ton of design work, and, it's going to be hard to do. So is it funnier just to have the camera outside the van, and have this back and forth and having all these sounds and Harley Quinn saying sassy things, while she beats all these goons. And you just hear it and you see this thing rocking and maybe you see a limb flying off, and that's funnier, that's funnier, and it's easier, it's way easier. So I think sometimes, we try to come up with stuff like that, to make up the fact that sometimes we don't get, like the super action sequence with 20 people.
That's a great point. And if you had like a fresh green board artist, they would take that, they read that on the page, and then like do it word for word and linearly, because they're like, well, that's what the script says. Like, no, you have to think beyond what the script, yes, that's what the script says, but what do they really want? And then
you're like the therapist of the script, where you're like, but is what the script saying? Like,
yes, maybe not. I love what you just said about economy and how that inspires creativity in a way. Like we were tasked once with we had a character at a bar mitzvah, and like, here's the reception. We want a wide shot. You can see 100 people. I want 100 people dancing the hora. And I was just like, all right, you want 100 people dancing the hora? That means we're not going to be able to do anything else in the rest of the show. How about this? And then, so it's illusion. It's all smoke and mirrors. Like, I had a wide shot. I just had a couple of strategic people move in the wide shot. Then you cut to people holding hands. Let's hold hands. You don't see their feet, and then you just slide them around doing this. And then when the color came back, I was like, you see 100 people dancing? And they were like, yes, thank you. I see 100 people dancing. And we didn't have to do it, but it was illusion.
Yep. I remember this episode. You guys knocked that out. Yeah, I feel like in TV, you become like this master illusionist where you're just like, how can I get this to feel way more expensive than it actually is? Because we definitely don't have the money for what they're asking us to do here.
Yeah, when we like launch our boards, I try to make sure that the board artists, before they do anything, know what that sequence is about. Like, what is that scene about? What is the point of that scene? Like, what are we trying to say here? And because the little details sometimes don't matter to what the core of the gag or the story point, or, I mean, those writers, like, they take a lot of time thinking about how this story is being put together, right? We should do the same. We should be thinking about, I wish we could get their notes, right? Like the script and then their beats, like how they're getting there, But,
well, it's interesting you say, like, I don't think all writers are thinking like that. I came up with a term when we were at Fox. I came up with a term that I told Rich Appel at the time. I was like, octopus arms. So when I got a script, I would drew a little octopus on a Post-it. I was like, this is octopus arms, man. What that is
like
like
all over the place.
Well, they write the fact that, like, all right, a character comes in and they're holding their laptop, they got a drink in their hand, and they're doing this and they're doing that, and it's like, and then the next thing is like, and then they pick up a rock, and then they pick up a brick, and then they do this, and I was like, what about all the other stuff that you have them doing? It's like, you're not thinking physically, you just, I mean, granted, that's our job to come up with the choreography, but octopus arms is just impossible. How many arms do you think they got?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I feel like the intentionality behind it, because it's like, okay, so he's carrying a bunch of stuff. The intention here is this person looks busy. So my job, I guess, is to translate this person is carrying a bunch of stuff. As soon as they get in, they exacerbatedly drop everything. And now they're clear for
Yeah.
next scene where they have to do stuff. So yeah, it becomes like, I feel like, I don't know, I like that puzzle solving aspect of it, where it's like, this is maybe physically impossible, but how do we do it?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah, it's definitely problem solving, you know? And I love it. I feel very lucky to be able to do this, you know? Sometimes when you're in the grind and day by day, you kind of like get tired, but in the end, it's like, what else would I be doing? I don't have any other skills. Like, what the hell would I be doing? I would be like working at I don't know. I don't know what I would do.
you followed the compulsion all the way to the end goal.
I would know that McDonald's pipeline down. I would have that down.
Oh my God.
Well, I guess we are at the end. Thank you all. Oh my God, so much. I really love being able to talk about this stuff, nerd out and talk about this stuff. Is there any last comments or ideas, or, you know, like how do you feel about where you are right now? You know, you guys you're all successful. Like, when you look back on your career, like, what do you think? How do you feel about it?
I'm happy.
Yeah.
I'm so happy.
You sound happy.
I worked your expression just now on the t-shirt with the hood. I'm so happy. But, you know, I mean, I think it is a legitimately very exciting time for animation. There's a lot more spaces content can live, and it's changing the type of content that can be created. I don't know what the answer to the question it's creating is, but it's like, at least like from where I'm at and at Disney, I'm starting to see things coming into existence that are different from what was being done before, that are going into specificity or places that weren't being tapped before. And I'm like, yeah, let's just keep doing that. So that's what keeps me excited. I'm like, yes, more of different stories.
It does seem like this streaming, like the way the industry has changed, it's like they can target more varied audiences, right? So it's really interesting. This is a pretty exciting time for animation.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, there's so much opportunity right now. It's difficult to staff shows, as you're probably
It really
realizing
is.
right now.
I had no idea how hard, like, at least 3 times in the past year, a producer from another show is like, but like, if you know a Harmony animator, I'm like, I think just like, where? They're all a bunch of us, by the way. But, like,
How about you, Ceci?
I feel really good. I love working on an adult show. Like, I have been doing Scooby-Doo's until 2018.
Wow.
So, and I love Scooby. Scooby-Doo is very, you know, close to my heart. I used to watch it when I was a kid, and I love doing the Scooby-Doo's. But, you know, you're doing shows for kids, and sometimes you wish that you could do something different. You know, and I got that opportunity with Harley Quinn. You know, it's such a unique show, you know, when it's kind of adult and a little bit gory and a little bit,
It is very adult.
of everything. Not for kids, that's for sure.
Nothing's gonna beat this gig that I'm doing now. Like Big Mouth, like I laugh every day because we have talking vaginas and talking penises. There's, like anytime I'm like, I wonder what's going on at Disney. Let me go sniff around over there, and I'm like, wait a minute, I can't draw dicks over here.
can't say that we've reached that, no. Take it to you, Anthony. Just
Yeah, but at the same, there's so much stuff going on that there are people that I know that will absolutely not work on adult shows, that they just have no interest and want to work on and love working on the kids shows or the younger, like those they're calling them bridge shows now, where like the whole family can watch them, you know.
the 4 quadrant ones.
Yeah, and so there's, you know, so much out there that you could even jump around, like it's
like it's almost harder to be pigeonholed now because there's just so much going on. It's like, but like, would you draw dicks professionally? Like, you haven't, but like, I believe you could. So I feel like you can kind of like sample the different types of storytelling in a way that was, whereas before it was very much like, this is your job and you do this one job, you work on this show. And now it's like, I don't know, you did preschool last year, but like, what if you did this murder show? So.
That's a lot of our board team came from not adult shows, and they were huge horror fans, and they were really excited to be able to work on a horror show. And the elevator pitch for our show, it's basically about the Antichrist, and I'm not revealing anything that I shouldn't reveal because that's been announced. And it's a 13-year-old Antichrist, and her parents don't get along. And so when we were hiring, we were like, are you okay working on a Antichrist show? We had to like put it out there. But yeah, some people they've been working in daytime, kids shows for a while, and they're like, hell yeah,
Yeah, it's like, it's refreshing to be able to try different types of things. And honestly, I feel like it's hard to know what's your thing until you've done it. I don't know if you guys feel that, where it's like, I didn't know what was a thing that I would enjoy. Like I thought it was something, but then I was like, oh, I actually enjoyed this type of storytelling. I would not have thought that. Like,
yeah.
I've done a little bit of everything, the preschool, the prime time, the action, the adult, and I like all of them. It's like, I don't really think I could choose. I mean, I like this because I'm doing this now, and it was a change of pace, and I'm enjoying it.
Yeah.
But I would never say, oh, I'm never going back to a preschool show, or I'm never going back to this, because I enjoy parts of the process in each one of them.
I think the fun part of the job is the challenge, right? Like, and whatever that is, any show that I've worked on, I always try to find the thing that I need to learn out of that show, the thing that I'm hoping to learn, so that every time I have a job, like, I learn a little bit more, and just curiosity about what we're working on. All right, I don't want to keep you too late. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
This was really fun, and I hope all the Lightbox people enjoyed the talk too. So thank you all.